Thank you so much for having me here today. Hello, everyone. Let me just, here we go. So I am Denise Francis, a senior product designer here in Atlanta, also a global communications chairperson for an employee resource group that caters to employees of African and Caribbean descent at my job. I'm also a creative visual designer and a fine artist. And I just wanted to thank you all for giving me a platform to tell my story and essentially taking care of me while I do so. So thank you. I also want to thank you all for tuning in to hear me share my stories about my adventures in finding my career superpowers, but ultimately a glimpse of what it's like to just be a normal, brilliant, relatable, fun, magical, but most important, normal human who just happens to be a Black woman. Now, side note, I also want to thank you all for ignoring any typos that you might find along the way, since the tool that I am using today is fairly new and they aren't quite keen on spell check just yet. So today I plan to share a few of the affirmations that I've discovered while riding this crazy roller coaster ride of finding myself and finding my career. I'll talk about leaning into what I know for sure, deciding that I can make anything, or that understanding that I can make anything, knowing that it is okay to quit things that aren't serving you, doing things anyway and finding a way to show your confidence, as well as becoming an advocate, and then ultimately telling the story. So let's talk about what I know for sure. Most of you can imagine exactly what it's like to know something for sure. Some of you know exactly what it's like to know for sure at a very young age exactly what you want to be when you grow up. All right, so that was me. This is baby Denise. And while she didn't exactly know the name of the thing that she wanted to be when she grew up, she know specific things like, the cartoons that she loved purely because of their aesthetics and the way that they aligned with hers. She knew things like her favorite colors. And I don't mean like, I like pink or I like purple, but I mean like instead of color schemes like the one that you're seeing on the left, she knew that she preferred color schemes like the one that you see on the right. Even down to her favorite toys. Those Mother Goose-esque toys weren't really the move. The preference was always something that encouraged making things. So there was always a comfort in art from the very beginning. And those are the type of things, those things that you know for sure, those things never leave you. No matter what career choices you have to make in life moving forward, they never leave you. And so this brings me into understanding that we, or I, can make anything. This is my sister. I bring her into this story because she played a pivotal role in young Denise's life. And of course, she still does because she's my older sister and she controls basically everything that I do, but she still does. And back then when we were kids, she showed me that you could literally make anything. We made things like TV shows with my dad's camcorder, teaching kids how to do things that we learned through our children's encyclopedia. Even though I was so young that I could barely read yet, and I didn't know how to pronounce words like paper mache, and I was supposed to be over the arts and crafts segment. We stayed up late in the summertime typing up new episodes of our favorite TV shows, The Cosby Show, A Different World, or Living Single, and of course, Sister, Sister. We tried to create new volumes of the Babysitters Club that included more of the backstory of the Black character, Jessie, including her family members and friends, so that she wouldn't be the only Black character in the story. We also tried to build this car using a scooter, roller skates, leftover 90s wall paneling and tons and tons and tons of like hot glue. Like my mom was like buying hot glue from Walmart like every day, all summer long. But that's a story, another story for another day. Just kidding. This is what the car looked like. It was super fugly, but it was super fun to make. And it was probably one of the best summers that I ever had. So there was always so many creative ideas happening, and it was just embedded into me early that it is possible to try to make anything. Like you literally can try to make anything. You just have to decide. And then you just have to find new ways to adapt to make it into a creative and imaginative experience. So this, I would say, was the beginning of knowing at least one of my micro superpowers. Once I got to high school, I began to lean more into becoming an artist because now I knew that I wanted to be, drumroll please, a fine artist for a living. Simple, right? Wrong. My guidance counselor and all of the other authority figures in my life swiftly busted into my plans, thinking that all of my efforts in my advanced placement art classes were cute, but not reasonable if I wanted to be someone who actually earned money for a living. So I was sent off to do some career shadowing trips where I was bored to tears watching this girl from an ad agency literally sit and design spots in the Yellow Pages book all day, phone book. The only thing that I really remember from that day was that their super hipster manager ordered us tuna fish pizza for lunch because he thought it would be like some like fun and quirky thing. It's definitely safe to say that at that moment, for me, advertisement was out. So after much convincing and false expectations, the counselor, myself, and my parents settled on architecture. And quickly, within a few weeks, I was unexpectedly headed to architecture camp. Yes, architecture camp is a real thing. I went to my choice college of Florida A&M University to meet other prospective architecture candidates, where we there for about a month to learn about architecture basics. And I was actually terrified that I would hate it and have to start all over again after the whole advertisement thing. But here's the kicker. It was amazing. But that's because we weren't really doing architecture. We were doing creative projects like designing and building structurally sound chairs made from cardboard, or sketching and painting buildings with watercolor while exploring matching typography to make posters. We use color pastel chalks and charcoal to make our projects. It all really felt just like arts and crafts. And for me, if this is what architecture was, then I wanted in. And it was. So for the first 2 years of architecture school, it felt like we increasingly did more challenging arts and crafts projects, as well as fine art challenges over time. And of course, it was always architecture related, but still, like I loved it. It actually wasn't until I got closer to graduating with my master's in architecture that I got that first feeling of like, ooh, I don't think I really want to do this anymore. These technical drawings of bathroom tiles and parking garages and concrete, that just wasn't what I had in mind. I had finished my bachelor's of science and done a few internships that opened my eyes to just how mundane architecture might be for me. Some people loved it, but I just couldn't see myself working on construction document red lines for years and years and years before even becoming eligible to even sit for the architecture exam in hopes to no longer be considered an architectural intern. However, I pushed through because my final master's thesis project brought back that spark of imagination that I first fell in love with in the beginning. It was basically an art installation that could easily travel the world to help people who are displaced find their family and friends after natural disasters or things like genocide. Although I knew more of the mundane was headed my way, I was the type of person that would never quit. I'd keep waking up and going into these small firms where I didn't relate to anyone. And, I'd struggle to do what they asked of me, just to turn around and cry all the way home while sitting in hours of Atlanta traffic. But I still would never quit. And it really was because I just didn't want to disappoint my parents and everyone who knew me and just thought so highly of this role of an architect. What's funny is I'd go over to the mall food court during my lunch break during those years, and I'd sit and teach myself how to code using one of Apple's more popular tools at the time called iWeb. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that, but I just loved doing it. And then I still wouldn't quit architecture, but I should have. And I learned that it is okay to quit what is not serving you, or the universe might just do it for you. No matter how hard we push to get through, sometimes the universe decides to quit for us. And I was laid off from my job due to the 2008 recession, and the market flipped, no pun intended, and no one was building anything. And not only was I laid off, but I was laid off twice, meaning that even though I hated it, I still sought out another role in architecture after being laid off the first time because I just didn't want to disappoint anyone. Now, the second time I was laid off, I decided this is my chance. Here is the open door to try something new. And even with fear clouding my every thought and plan details, that's exactly what I did. I decided to go back to school, which I would not suggest anybody do unless you find a way to do it for free. And this time I'd studied the fine art of graphic design. I found myself enrolled at Savannah College of Art and Design here in Atlanta to get my second master's in graphic design. But little did I know I would get so much more. I learned a lot there. I had the opportunity to be creative and imaginative every single day. It was really hard. I mean, they don't give SCAD the nickname sleep comes after death for no reason. Only the cream of the crop graduate. And I learned how to create a concept from scratch and successfully see it to the end. And I also learned how to reach out for unique and special opportunities to be a designer. So for me, it was the beginning of the dream. This was the beginning of do it anyway and show your confidence. So during the first few months at SCAD, I got the tweet of a lifetime. One day I was sitting in the computer lab doing my homework in this room that we called the hot room at the time because it had no air conditioning in that particular room for some reason. And just after attending a talk by Kelly Catrone, who was visiting our campus that day, I got a shocking tweet. This tweet was from Grammy Award winner, singer, songwriter, India.Arie. Now, how I initially met her is a longer story for another day, but you remember that website that I was talking about earlier, how I'd went over to the mall and taught myself how to code in the food court. I had created it as a way to sell custom jewelry that I was making from scratch at the time. And two things most people don't know about India is one, she absolutely loves jewelry. And two, she attended SCAD, the same school, for jewelry and metalsmithing and art history. So this was where our connection first began. This tweet led to a chain of DMs where she asked me to help her on a project that she was getting ready to work on. It was to build a website for a contest that she was getting ready to hold for her super fans to get the chance to join her in an intimate concert here in Atlanta. My response was, this is only my second quarter here at SCAD, and I only just began to learn how to code like a few weeks ago, right? And her response was, we'll figure out how to do it together. So this was the biggest do it anyway lesson I had ever had, and it changed my life. I learned the importance of challenging yourself to try to do things even though you don't have 100% confident in those things. Spoiler alert, the website ended up being super fugly, but it worked. And the concert ended up being an amazing experience. I almost felt like I didn't deserve to get to see how all of these things worked on the back end and behind the scenes. That's how amazing it was. Like I felt like I didn't even deserve to be there. This was the very first time that someone had really shown me that they believed in me, and I'll forever be grateful for it. What I also didn't know was that the website project for the concert was somewhat of a test. And after it went well, she then asked me to join her on the road for my first tour as creative designer and basically merchandise girl. That was the beginning of over 10 years of working together, traveling the world together, making things together, promo tours, meeting other celebrities that I never thought I would have the opportunity to meet. I mean, y'all, it was wild, and every day was a new adventure, and I was just loving it. Photo and video shoots, television appearances, merchandise creation, and experience creation for a VIP session for her super fans while we were having concerts. But we were also becoming just good friends, which is the most important thing that came out of all of this for me. So I decided that I would revert all of my classes to be online classes and that I would complete them from the back of the tour bus. So I'd be up in the back of the tour bus working on a poster for social justice design class, and India would come back there and be like, "You're really doing homework at 2 a.m. right now. Okay, all right." But I love the work that we were doing on the road and the people that we met along the way. And most importantly, the people in the band. It truly felt like I had a family, like a work family. And I'm not talking about like, we are your family, your community. It was like real life, like this is my road family. And it gave me an escape from the roller coaster ride of creating these innovative and imaginative works at school, but still not being invited to one of the biggest job fair exhibits for graphic designers at our school, or being accepted into a course to be instructed by the famous Massimo Vignelli, creator of many well-known typefaces, as well as the design for the New York subway system. All just to be told by some professors, make sure you keep your hands out of your portfolio photos, just in case the employers don't want to hire Black people. I had landed some pretty cool internships along the way, but none of that really mattered because the opportunities never really came organically. And I always found myself striving to be the best in class so that I wasn't rejected just due to the way that I look. So creating while touring was the dream job, and it still is today. But realistically, what people don't realize is that there are gaps in between working on gigs in the music industry. So the work that is produced is, at the end of the day, a product of the singer or the artist's personal life. So if they're taking a break, or if they're spending more time working on their album, or just emotionally creating in private for a moment, that's normal. But it's absolutely your sole responsibility to keep yourself afloat financially and continue working somehow. So I graduated, and in between touring and working on music industry gigs, I would teach graphic design at local colleges. I was really trying to hold out for a job that, spoke to my love for print and packaging design as a role, but opportunities for those types of jobs became less and less and less as technology progressed. So I taught. In my final years of school, they were just now beginning to introduce more digital courses, especially in user experience, but only as independent studies. The world was rapidly changing from print to UX or digital, and I was finding myself getting ready to be stuck in the middle without a job in either one, and just teaching instead. So one of the things that stuck out to me in my final days at SCAD was something that one of my professors said during my thesis review. So imagine we're all sitting at this like review table, all my professors in front of me and me at the head of the table. One of my professors says, We all know that you're one of the most talented designers to complete the MFA program here so far. You're a good storyteller and you will go far. But the thing that's missing so far is your confidence in believing in yourself. We think you can do great things, but now you have to show the world that you believe that you can do great things. Show your confidence. And I'm like sitting at this table surrounded by all these professors. I'm just sitting there like, okay, okay. So now it's time to move on from SCAD and teaching and touring the world, all while being immersed in this difficulty of finding a more stable job in the creative field. So I kind of started to begin to wonder, like, what's actually next here? I have all of these degrees. I feel like I've had all of these super awesome experiences under my belt, and no one is even really looking at my portfolio or my resume. So at this point, it's 2015, and I begin to think back to a happy hour that I attended the year before while trying to network my way into a creative role. And I remember a brief presentation about a boot camp to learn more about user experience. Now, this was a time in Atlanta where UX wasn't as big as it is now. It was just beginning to become more popular, but there weren't really many people talking about what UX really was, what product design was, and how to get a role doing those things. So I hopped on the Googles and I began researching and asking around about these people from this brief presentation from General Assembly. Learning UX there seemed like it might be the thing that I needed to do. However, I was super skeptical and reluctant because I had already done so much school, and it was an immersive program, which meant that I'd possibly have to quit my job teaching. I even applied for their diversity grant and a grant for women, and later found out that out of the only 2 Black female in the cohort of 12, including myself, neither one of us received any one of those grants. I'm not going to talk about who it went to because I care for those people dearly in my heart, but that was kind of just like the beginning of like, what do I got to do to like get some help in like moving into this creative career, So I made up a plan. The course was 10 weeks. And they gave you 5 weeks into receiving a prorated refund if you decided to drop out. So like week 1, you decided to drop out, you would get that much of your money back or whatever. I decided I would not quit my job until the first 5 weeks were over, meaning that I would be getting 0 sleep, which I also do not recommend. Do not recommend this to anybody. Don't do that. And I'd put the whole thing on a credit card with 0 interest because I refused to take out another loan for education. And then I promised myself that I'd be the first one in my cohort to get a job and that I just use my negotiation skills to pay it off ASAP. So now this was a new type of career and life roller coaster ride. I was the only one in the course that had a formal art and design foundation. I could feel the momentum. I was exhausted, but I was nailing these UX portfolio projects. However, I couldn't really enjoy the ride as I still had these little micro fears of things that I knew could potentially hold me back anyway. UX was new, so there weren't many mentors, let alone Black mentors, let alone Black female mentors. I had to worry about things like, how should I wear my hair in my headshot? People were already asking me why I wore that weird hat whenever I would wear my head wrap over my beautiful locks. I wondered if I should include a photo of myself on my portfolio website. Would they trust all of my previous experience, or would I have to start all over again in an entry-level role just because of who they assumed I was as a person? Would I be dinged for changing careers? Some of you may know, many Black women are typically feared to be job hoppers. And most importantly, would I have the proper onboarding to be set up for success in the first place? Or was I in danger of drowning by just jumping in feet first? So I did the Black woman thing. I made sure it was clear that I was working harder than anyone else. I knew that doing just okay work would get me nowhere. I even found myself arguing with other students in my cohort on why my fear for having my resume and portfolio basically trashed because I did, include images of myself on my website were actual valid concerns. But I did it. I was the first in my cohort to land a job on the same night of my General Assembly meet and hire reverse job fair. It was a startup that didn't last very long because, frankly, just because you have the funding to have a startup doesn't mean you know what you're doing in the tech space. It was a hot mess, quite frankly, and I quickly moved into my actual first role as the first corporate UX designer, which was a mid-level position and the first of its kind at that company. I did it. So far, this roller coaster has been wild. And now that I've finally gathered myself and I've landed this role, it's time to become an advocate. My mind was set on trying to help other people who had never had the same experience of me and who had the same downs, help them not have to experience those same downs along the way. Now that I had this new job under my belt, it was time to create a space for others that look like me. So at that time, I began teaching UX 101 classes at night to stay connected with the Atlanta UX community. And I met a lot of people, but it opened the door for me to meet other people who needed mentorship. I give up my nights, my evenings, and dedicate to having conversations with people who were struggling to find their way in the UX community also. No matter how exhausted I was, I would take the meeting. I wanted to be who I needed when I was trying to find my way. Then I learned a lot about mentorship. Not everyone needs to be your mentee. There are various types of relationships that a lot of people fail to realize. So of course, there's the mentor-mentee relationship, sure. But there's also the personal board of directors, people that you can always go to for advice that are always in your corner. And it doesn't just have to be industry people. Excuse me. Then you have your sponsors, people who can speak highly for you when you aren't in the room because they create a seat for you in spaces that may otherwise you might have a hard time entering yourself. And then you have your industry peers, people who are doing similar things as you, who can compare experiences and help each other get ahead. And then there's my favorite one, which is your tribe, like your design tribe. Those are the people that, are basically industry peers, but who are genuinely your friends. And you can be a lot more personal with these people, a lot more candid. You can share things like your salary to, help you understand if you are getting what you deserve. The importance of these relationships carried on with me as I moved companies. I realized that I had the opportunity to take a stand for people who were career changers, especially those who come from non-corporate careers like myself, interns, high school students, new hires, Black people, Black women, women in general, basically anyone who didn't fit the typical norm and needed a refresher on corporate lingo, acronyms, and the politics, career hazing, and all of the things that make it hard for no good reason. And let's face it, most corporate companies, the onboarding kind of sucks. Like, these are the people who aren't typically set up for success. And I believe wholeheartedly that no one deserves years and years and years of hardship before finding success. I learned that even if I laced my work with my superpowers, whether that's adding to my style of storytelling or my work including my skills in sketch note taking or my stronger visual design background or my innovative ideas, my vulnerability in having courageous conversations, soft skills in people moment preservation, and creating ways to get answers and solutions in my daily work, that I'd always enter teams that had at least 1 to 2 people who had never had to work with someone who looked like me in their life and do not have people that look like me in their personal lives and had no desire to get to know me as a teammate, which just made things really hard for no reason. This more recently has led me to create or join efforts in my workplace as a part of my daily work that creates tools to help people succeed. Documents like design process checklists, visual UX UI consistency efforts so that you can understand what the design system is supposed to look like up front. Learning to be an advocate for things like accessibility, ethics in design, those types of things. I've had the opportunity to be immersed in changes and improvements to be made in the way that we approach diversity, inclusion, equity, and equal pay. I took on an additional role along with being a product designer, also being the global communications chairperson for our employee resource group for employees of African and Caribbean descent. Anything that I can do to ensure a platform of success in a space that I've struggled in, I'm here for it. Also, sharing these stories is a big part of making a change for diverse designers. So I began to speak. I always knew that I wanted to do more public speaking, but I never imagined that I feel so strongly compelled to take the route of speaking about how to protect your magic as a diverse employee when you were never set up for success in the first place, how to find your superpowers when you're almost always expected to do poorer work, even when other colleagues are getting praised for doing the bare minimum, how to actively shield yourself from burnout with micro wellness life changes. Those are the things that I love to speak about. Whenever I'm asked to do talks, I'm always like, why? Why do people want me to come speak about things? I mean, I have a story, but to me, my story isn't complete just yet. I didn't write a best-selling book or become famous for creating some sort of creative digital content. I usually spend a lot of my time trying to figure out how to give myself the next promotion because I don't ever see one coming in sight. I'm not considered on large platforms yet, and there's no happy ending to my story with a pretty bow on top. But one thing that I realize about my story is that the things that I have been able to accomplish by leaning into my superpowers, those are the happy ending. Learning how to give back to others like me who really need it, that's the beautiful surprise. And the mere fact that I get to keep going and continue to find my large platform with continued success, that itself is empowerment wrapped in that pretty bow. Being a genius design bae isn't always easy, but it's definitely a superpower win. So I've said a lot today, and I'm not sure if the story even makes any sense, but I'll leave you with this. I encourage you all, when you're feeling stuck, when imposter syndrome kicks in, when you're feeling burnt out and exhausted, continue to lean into your superpowers because you are just as worthy as anyone else. Your superpower story matters, and it could inspire anyone. Take care, drink some water, mind the business that pays you, back up your hard drive, call your mom, and love yourself. Thank you so much today for listening to my little story. I guess we will open up the floor for any questions.
Thank you. That was amazing. Please
Thank you.
show your, I don't know, my amazement in the chat or just like clap. That was amazing. And I love the like 10 also kind of pro tips that you've added in the end too. I should drink more water.
Yeah, everybody drink some
Right
water.
there.
Right now. I'll drink some too. Lemon water, but it's water.
Back up your designs. I set a reminder too. But yeah, like thank you so much for sharing that amazing story. It showed so many different insights and takeaways. There's definitely that universality of specificity, especially when it comes to telling personal narratives. So I love that. So, and with that, I'd love to open up the floor. If you guys have any burning questions, want to ask Denise, please do. Please unmute, raise your hand, point you out, or ask it in the chat.
Got a lot of people saying thank you and that they were inspired by your story.
Very relatable. Best presentation.
I would like to say something. It's Kim Estes. I always enjoyed Denise's presentation. I think Creative Mornings was another presentation I saw, and I don't know if everyone knows, but her storytelling through imagery is just amazing. And I think it says a lot to say that you can stop doing the thing that is not serving you. I don't think it's just, I think it's a personality trait we all have. We don't want to quit. But I think there are times just with everything that, you know, something kind of just is over. And it could be that it started out well and it's over. That can go with people, it can go with jobs, it can go with, you know, the shoes you wore last week or last year that just no longer fit. And so if you think about it like a shoe, you would give that to someone else and give that opportunity, that job, that friend to someone else who might fit them better. And I just think the way Denise described it and her journey was great. But I can't emphasize that enough as a person who's gone through so many different career transitions. I never went back to school. I just kind of keep transitioning and evolving, and I've enjoyed all the steps. It's been difficult sometimes, but Denise, thanks for inspiring us to do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it absolutely is like wearing a shoe that no longer fits. Like, why would you just torture yourself, you know? So I hope that everyone feels encouraged to lean towards what they really want to be doing in their heart, even if it's hard. You got this.
We actually do have a question from Maria in the chat. She was asking if you are currently teaching anywhere.
I am not currently teaching anywhere. I would say that as my career has progressed, I don't really get the opportunity to do as much teaching anymore. I still here and there meet with people in terms of like the different relationship types. So typically I would say for mentoring or whatever, but it doesn't have to necessarily be mentoring. There's a lot of people that I've met where I'm like, hey, you don't need a mentor. Like, why don't we just be design friends and learn from each other, you know? So I think that if you want to consider that to be mentors or to be teaching, then that is kind of where I do teaching, but no more university teaching. I hate grading work. Just
I have a question. Can you give me India.Arie's cell phone number? I just want to call her. I'm just playing.
Yeah, so definitely will not give you her cell phone number, but yeah, what's up to another India.Arie fan? Hello, hello.
Right. Is it Janessa? I hope I'm saying your name correctly. She wants to know if you have any easy tricks for snapping out of imposter syndrome.
I mean, I think, like I said before, you just have to do it anyway and just lean more so on the idea that you don't know what you're doing. I think for me, as I've grown through having that board of directors, having mentors, having friends that I can kind of check in with, have been that thing that kind of snaps me out of imposter syndrome. And I can kind of lean on them to have conversations about encouraging conversations to just kind of press forward. But I will also like to mention that, you know, we have these conversations about imposter syndrome often. And what we fail to realize is that it's not always imposter syndrome. Sometimes we're brought into spaces where we are meant to feel that way, like it's us. And really, it is coming into a space where you are not set up for success in the first place. So I think that that feeling of, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing. Why did these people hire me? Are they sure that they want me? You know, is a testament to that organization needing a little bit of sprucing up in their onboarding or creating documentation or anything that you need to have success and not feel like you're walking into a dumpster fire, you know, secretly. So for me, more recently, when I see that, I feel like, okay, that is my opportunity to say, hey, it looks like we might need a document that goes out to new hires so that they don't feel like they have imposter syndrome, or they don't feel like they're drowning, or they don't call their dad at night and say, I don't know what I'm doing. I just feel like I don't know what's going on, you know? And so I think we can all be advocates for that piece, which is helping set people up for success and finding opportunities where we can do that in spaces where we're also feeling that way.
Awesome. May has a question. You talked a lot about your resilience throughout your life. What do you think is the biggest factor or skill to help you build resilience and keep going?
As corny as it sounds, I will say vulnerability. Um, like I said, I personally have been able to build up this confidence over time, even though, there are plenty of times where people like instructed me to have more confidence. So I feel like the confidence is there. When it comes down to like art and design, I feel very confident in that space. But I think the way to be resilient is the vulnerability, right? Doing things like this. So actually telling the story of what happened and kind of letting go of that fear of, oh my gosh, people are going to look at me a certain way if I mention my insecurities about, not getting an opportunity because I'm Black or because I'm a woman or because, I've changed careers or whatever. I think that allowing yourself to become more vulnerable and just tell it like it is without trying to impress people speaks volumes in ways that you have no idea. So I think just be true to yourself and the resilience will follow.
Ooh, we got a lot of questions coming in now. Christine asked, any tips on how to achieve, since he has several product designs that they want to license, any tips on how to achieve that? And all the things they say work aren't opening any doors. So I guess it's a question about how do you license your product designs?
So I'll be honest, I haven't had to license any of my particular product designs. I have done some trademarking, and I've also done some patenting of features and things like that, but it's usually through an employer. So with India, I helped put packages together for trademarking and things like that. For my current job, I have been able to apply for patents. So I have some patent pending products out there, about 13 of them. When it comes down to licensing, I won't sit here and pretend like I know because I don't, but maybe someone else in the chat can answer that.
Okay. Let's see. Another question from Kristen. How did you hone your public speaking skills?
So it's funny because I've always kind of wanted to do more public speaking just to have a point of view like mine out in the world. But I had never really had the courage to actually go out and do it until I was at a conference and there was a lady, I can't remember who she is now, it was a few years ago. She was giving a talk about how she gained the confidence to begin public speaking. And for her, it was creating the goal of, I think she said, doing like 10 public speaking gigs a year or something like that. And she found that it got easier over time. So she forced herself to kind of do it. It got easier over time. And then in the end, that year, she ended up doing like something like 50 speaking engagements, which was like inspiring to me and kind of let me know, okay, just do it. So there was that element of like, just jump in and do it. And I won't lie, I think that also having that background in teaching kind of helps with the public speaking, because literally that's what teaching is. You're literally standing in front of a group of people every day, public speaking, getting things wrong, making mistakes. And, all I can say is maybe like find smaller platforms and just let the fear go. Also, you can cheat. So I have a script, I have a teleprompter here. I practice my slides. No one is expecting you to be 1000% perfect in any presentation that you do. That's why it's really important to allow yourself to be vulnerable and to speak like a friend. I think all of those things combined have been super helpful in, I guess, like the public speaking side of things.
It looked perfect. I'm gonna just say that. Didn't know you were reading from teleprompter. You look professional. Got another question from Sasha. For Black women entering UX, is there any advice you can give to us? Or I'm sorry, you can give to use when entering into the field? You spoke about onboarding signs and how to gauge how it's going, or if there's anything in mind. So just advice on gauging that onboarding process.
I think you're already in the right space. meeting other people that do what you want to be doing or that you want to get involved with is the first step. So that's kind of what I did. I jumped into this world of, I want to know everyone in UX. And then it was like, I want to see what some women are doing in UX. And then it was like, where are the Black people at? I want to see what the Black women are doing in UX. You know what I mean? And I think having those connections at a high level and then kind of drilling down into this like micro group of people that are going to like really understand what I would be dealing with on a day-to-day basis is super helpful. So creating and garnishing relationships in the beginning, and just kind of being mindful of people's time while you're doing that is really important to maintain like really good relationships. And yeah, I mean, just making design friends, to be honest. I think that is a great way to get your foot in the door, because everyone's always looking for someone who needs a role or who needs to be in a specific space or has a particular superpower of sketching or drawing or storytelling or storyboarding, wireframing, strategy. And so it's always good to have people in your network, meaning that the people that are already in the network want you to join, because that's just more people that they can disperse the talent amongst.
Okay, awesome. Do we have time for 2 more questions? The last
Yeah.
2? Okay.
If you're open to that, Denise.
Are you good with that? Okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
So, oh no, I lost it. This is from, I hope I'm saying your name correctly, Aisha. Do you think you would be where you are if you had not enrolled in the, I guess, this General Assembly program and took a self-guided approach to transitioning into UX instead?
So I definitely think that that one is personality based. And this is the true testament of know thyself. I know myself, and I know that I am a hands-on learner and that I kind of need to be in an institution setting in order to like really grasp what it is that I'm trying to do. I got a lot of backlash for that, because when I was trying to do it, people were like, you could teach yourself that. All you got to do is listen to podcasts and read blogs. For me personally, that doesn't work. It works for some people. But for me, it was important to find some sort of class or something that I could take to learn. And then on top of that, have the other things. So have like listening to podcasts, watching YouTube videos, reading blogs and whatever. I think that for me, it needed to be multi-layered in order for me to like truly walk away feeling like I want to be doing this on a day-to-day basis, and that I feel confident in doing that.
All right. This is the last question. This is from Danielle. So you're currently working at one of the 10 best companies in the US, which is Salesforce. So kudos to you. Can you tell us a little bit about key elements in securing your position there? And how would you compare contract or small company UX projects to large corporations also?
So I think that you're asking basically, how do I maintain job security there? Is that kind of the question?
That sounds like that's what Danielle was asking.
Okay.
How'd you get your job at Salesforce? How'd you secure that bag? Then compare contract or small company UX projects to large corporations, because Salesforce is a huge company.
Yeah. Okay. So I got the job at Salesforce through relationships. I had a friend of a friend that I had worked with before, where I was like in this mode, like beginning of 2015, I was in this mode of, I'm trying to make design friends. And it wasn't just I'm trying to make design friends, but like I had this very specific goal of, I'm trying to make white design friends, Asian design friends, Black design friends, LGBT, all the different types of design friends, so that I could have like a really diverse circle of people to really understand how to be a designer in these different realms. And so one of the friends that I had made along the way, a friend of a friend, she texted me one night and she was like, hey, there's an opening role at Salesforce. I know you're looking for something, to apply tonight. I got you. And that is literally how it went. The process of getting in happened so quickly for me. And actually kind of changed my life. And, even to this day when because she's like just one of my good friends now, when I introduce her to other people, I'm like, this is my friend. I'll go ahead and say her name. This is my friend Kim. She changed my life, and it really speaks to why building relationships are super important. And that's kind of how I got in. How I maintain being in is honestly by being myself and honest. And I would say that if I couldn't be myself and honest in my daily work, in my work relationships, in my team relationships, then I would already be somewhere else by now, because again, you should quit things that don't serve you. And so that is the idea of why I'm still there. Now, when it comes down to comparing, kind of like smaller contract projects to large corporations, I've seen what I would call a spectrum. So I've seen the startup world. I've seen like more of a mid-level space. So my time working for the Weather Channel, IBM, I've seen what it looked like there. And then I've seen like Salesforce, this like mass conglomerate of like, a role. And what I would say the difference is the piece of the puzzle that you get to work on. The piece of the puzzle that I get to work on in my daily work now might be just a tiny, tiny, tiny piece of this like massive world of all of these products that we make, but it's always super impactful. And I would say that that is the common thread between them all for me. As long as each one is impactful, I can work at any size company. I personally tend to stray away from more of like the smaller contracty things or more of the startup world, unless it's something that I really, 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 really believe in, just because there is a lot of uncertainty. And personally, as you can see from my story, I've had a lot of uncertainty along the way. And currently I'm looking for stability. And so I kind of stray away from that a little bit more. I do miss more of the tight-knit feeling of knowing many, many, many people very well. But also over here in this huge conglomerate space, my network has grown tremendously. I've had opportunities to, have shine on who I am as a person and as a designer and those type of things. So there's a lot of give and take in designing for yourself as a contractor or a startup or maybe a medium-sized company, or working for someone like India.Arie versus like working at a big company. What should matter most is how it makes you feel every day. And if it doesn't feel good, try one of the other ones.
Awesome. I think that was the last. Yeah, that was all of our questions. Thank you so much,
Yay.
Denise, for dropping knowledge. I'm gonna pass it back to you, Ying.
Thanks for the smooth Q&A operation there. Yeah, that was amazing. Denise, and on the topic of, making meaningful connections and creating that support network, how would you like our new friends, our audience, to be able to reach out and connect with you?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. If you look for Denise Nicole Francis, you'll find me.
I have it copied and I wanted your
yeah.
just in case.
I'm on LinkedIn. Just let me know where you're coming from and I will accept right away. And then I am on Twitter, but like not really. I'm on there though. But if you feel like you want to connect with me there, feel free. Instagram is my jam. So I do chat with people and make connections through direct messages on Instagram also. And that's probably the space that I respond quickest.
Thank you for sharing all those platforms with us. And yeah, +1 to like adding a message when you connect with someone on LinkedIn. Because if you imagine all the requests that someone may get, if you have that message, that person, it really stands out, especially when you say like, we met here, or this was a really cool fact, and hoping to connect, adds to like a nice little touch to have someone connect with you.
And I usually make it easy by saying, if you just want to send me the light bulb emoji, I'll know you're from something and I'll add you immediately.
There you go. That's the cheat code right there.
Yes. That way you don't have to do all that typing and introduction and all that. Just, hey girl, hey.
Dang, I pushed send too fast. I would have loved to send an emoji.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you guys so much for for coming and again, sharing a piece of your day with us. Also, thank you so much to Denise for sharing her time, her story, her insights with us. With that, I know people either are on this side of the world, have a nighttime routine, have dinner. If you're other side of the world, may have morning routines, maybe late. Again, thank you so much for coming. Do RSVP or join us again next month on the 17th when we talk about essential soft skills that every UX practitioner should know in order to succeed.